So you've just arrived. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we've been having some incredible conversations about mega events and stadiums and the impact that not only has for design and infrastructure and sustainability for a city and a nation, but the impact that has socially. So for my first question, when we talk about Levi Stadium, you're set to host both the Super Bowl LX and the FIFA World Cup in 2026. What are the unique preparations that are needed to accommodate for the specific demands of each event?
So, thankfully, American football and world football play on relatively the same stage. So there's not a ton that we need to do from that standpoint. But everything that we try to do at Levi Stadium, we want to make sure that fans have an amazing experience and something that changes their game. So we're in the process of putting about $200 million renovation into the stadium. A lot of that technology, new video boards, things like that. But the key when we started to build Levi Stadium was to make sure that the infrastructure was set so you can continue to enhance and build upon what you started. So making sure that Wi-Fi works, that DAS works. And as an example, the baseball stadium that was built in San Francisco was built about 10 years before we did Levi Stadium. And they wanted to make sure everybody could plug in their laptop to get Wi-Fi. So they ran cables throughout the building before Wi-Fi became, a popular used thing. So you have to make sure you keep up with what the new generation of technology is. And to my knowledge, there's nothing that's going to take over from Wi-Fi and DAS. And making sure that those systems work as well as they work when you're in a building like this, when you're in a Starbucks and you're just sitting and ordering a coffee, you want that to be able to be used. And then you can continue to build SaaS systems off of the infrastructure in your stadium.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I think everyone in here can agree that there's been an event that we've been to and for whatever reason the Wi-Fi hasn't been working. It becomes frustrating even though that's not necessarily the purpose of what you're there for, but it also inhibits the ability to then share that experience in real time, so which also explains or delves into understanding how sport and games like this have such a ripple effect to the wider community, whether you're there on game day or not. So that's really, really interesting. So from that, when we talk about these high profile events, in addition to that, are there any other specific upgrades that you have done or you're looking at those capabilities from that fan experience?
So a lot of it is fan experience based. So we wanted to be the first ticketless, cashless building in North America. And again, to build off of that, Apple talked to us early on. They said, we don't want to partner with you. We want you to buy 67,000 iPads and put them in every seat. So this was their first generation iPad. That sounds cool until they're on their 15th generation of iPad. And everybody here has a smartphone, has a smart device. We're going to spend $500 every 18 months on some type of hardware. So I'm not going to compete with that at a stadium. You're not going to compete with that in Saudi if you're going to build out for 2034 FIFA World Cup. Whatever the technology is day one, the hardware is going to change by the time you open. So you want to make sure that you continue to have that software development. And what we've done is said, we want every ticket, if you're a season ticket member, you have a full access to every non-alcoholic food and beverage item. So it's included in your ticket price.
Wow, okay.
We want to take the barrier away and the hassle away from coming to a sporting event. Similar to going to a hotel, right? You're paying a lot of money for a nice hotel. Do you need to pay $17 for the bottle of water that you're going to drink? Charge me the $17. Just charge it in my hotel price. Don't one-off me and make me feel like my experience is cheap and ruined. And that's what we've really tried to do to make sure that the feeling is seamless, where you can watch replays, you can order your food to your seat, you can do all those things from the existing infrastructure.
And what has the feedback been like then from fans as that experience? Because I completely agree. It sets a precedent, doesn't it, for that time that you're there and how you are able to take part, enjoy, and be invested in the game or the event that you purchased your ticket to be there for.
So the number one complaints that we'll get is, and the complaints always are around when we are losing more than we are winning.
Okay.
Right. So you're taking that out of the equation. So it's really how you feel, and the things that you get in other stadiums in the U.S. It is technology based. It is, my ticket didn't work when I walked in, and if you pay a lot of money for a ticket, if somebody flies here for the World Cup, and they spent however much money, and their ticket can't scan, that's what they remember. That's what they tell their friends when they go home. So you want to just take that off the table by over-investing in that technology. And again, let whatever normally happens in the stadium be what their experience is.
And have you seen the budgets for looking at these innovations to enhance that fan experience sort of expend more than what you had initially thought?
So we were able to build a venue-based SaaS company off of what we put into the stadium. Okay. So we took what we built at Levi's, took it to other stadiums, other venues, other events, and we're able to sell that to a Fortune 500 company several years later. And again, just doing it at one stadium is a pretty big lift. Now I think it's something that's sort of commonplace. But if you're going to build out however many stadiums the kingdom will build out, like you want to make sure that it's not just building out for a one-time event, that you can keep this for multiple events. There's going to be many things that come here pre-World Cup, during World Cup, post-World Cup, and you want to make sure that you can continue to build and enhance upon that. And I mean, the other piece is, if you don't have public transit, especially when you have people coming from out of town that aren't used to driving and things like that, we get about 30% of our fans from modal split. So whether it's the light rail line or a commuter rail line, we are drastically reducing the number of cars that are driving the Levi Stadium. And it just makes it so much easier for fans to go from their hotel to jump on a train and get dropped off a 5-minute or less walk from Levi Stadium.
Absolutely. It's that entire experience. It's not just in the stadium. What about collaborating, with event organizers? What has been that collaboration process like with the NFL and FIFA, and to meet perhaps their different requirements, or maybe they've been the same? What are the insights that you've gained by hosting, such large-scale events?
So the nice thing with FIFA is, for us, we only have to deal with them once, right? So FIFA is going to come in and ask for everything and anything, and as painful as it might be, it's worth it to host an event like the World Cup. So there's things that you would do, and a lot of that is it's public-private partnership, making sure that different cities, so we're between San Francisco and San Jose. We want to make sure that both the major cities where the majority of people are staying have a great time, have a safe experience. That's tying into all the law enforcement and things like that to make sure that people are safe, tying into public transit. So it's making sure, again, like everybody's experience is seamless, because what they're coming for is the game, what they're coming for is the event. They don't want their memory to be, I was stuck in traffic for 5 hours, I was lost, I didn't know where to go. So it's really working between the public-private partnership and FIFA to make sure that the investments that we make and the investments that are made from the public side of things enhance the fan experience and the game day experience.
Game day experience, absolutely. From an economic and community impact point of view, where you're hosting Super Bowl FIFA, it can have a significant economic impact, and especially for you and in the Bay Area. What have been your expectations for the local community, and how does Levi Stadium plan to maximize that as an opportunity?
So we were able to do an economic impact report after the first 10 years of the stadium. We're in year 11 now, and we've generated over $1 billion of economic activity over a 10-year period. And that, to me, putting people at work, making sure that wages are there for folks that are in the stadium working, people around the stadium looking at all the things that are utilized in and around the stadium. We've put tens of thousands of people at work. And that's something that has a lasting impact, much more so than just the game and just the event. So those are the things that really move the needle. When we did Super Bowl 50, 9 years ago now, we wanted to make sure that when we raised money, 10% of what we raised went back into the community. And that's something that, as the kingdom is thinking about what do you do for an impact in 2034, how do you leave a lasting legacy because of the World Cup? And how do you build, a bunch of fields for young women and young girls to play sports? How do you do something that's going to leave that impact and people are going to remember 2034 did more than just host one of the winners for the World Cup, but you're going to be able to say, because of that game, because of that event, thousands of people are playing the game and doing something in the community that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And that's an opportunity to raise funds that you wouldn't otherwise have. And it's a great legacy to have.
Yeah, well, I think it's a wonderful example. We've had a lot of discussions today on, that social impact and the legacy. And I think that what Vision 2030 and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the leadership are working so hard to do is to ensure that they're looking at that from the design lens, and making sure that all of these things are incorporated. They're looking generations ahead, and we just had a discussion about the importance of that strategic leadership and ensuring that there are leaders and mentors and allies who can, from an athlete perspective, but sport as an entire ecosystem, from grassroots all the way to that professional level. But also the discussion around the jobs, the volunteer opportunities. It truly is a wider ecosystem that has a positive impact on so many lives.
And I have folks that were volunteers at Super Bowl 50 that can't wait to be volunteers for Super Bowl 60. And again, they're volunteers. You're working 10 hours a day, not paid, but it was one of the most rewarding things that they've done because they've helped people experience something and gave them joy. And that's something that, the hospitality that I always feel when I come to Saudi Arabia, it fits with that. It fits with that ethos.
Yes.
And then when you build upon legacy projects, when you're trying to build out a public transit system here, and you can see that they want to build a public transit system here, something like the World Cup is the ignition for that, where it doesn't make sense to build the amount of public transits you would just for the World Cup, but you want to make it utilized for the future of your country, and this is where you show it off. This is the reason why you make the investment, to get people from stadium to stadium and get people from one city to the next. And once you do that, you start to clean up some of the traffic issues that you have. You get to become more sustainable in your travel and that type of experience. And the World Cup it's a huge driver, and it's a huge ignition for that.
Absolutely. Levi Stadium as a blueprint for future venues, being one of the few venues, as we've said, to host a Super Bowl and FIFA World Cup, what are the lessons from a best practices perspective that you believe other stadiums can take from your experience in preparing for large, diverse events?
So for us, most stadiums are split between 50% of the people in the upper deck and 50% people in the lower bowl. We built a stadium where only a third of our fans are in the upper deck, and we brought fans lower and closer to the field. We built a lot of the premium space in our suites in a suite tower on one side of the field from sort of end zone to end zone, which is a much simpler build. It's a much more compact build. And again, we want to make sure that fans are as close to the action as possible. We've had more events outside of football, so concerts, things like that, than any other stadium in the United States since we've opened, including some of the dome stadiums. So we're an outdoor stadium, and that's what you have the opportunity to do here, is build something that is a great impact in 2034, but if you're building the right infrastructure, you can always continue to enhance. You don't want to build a billion-dollar stadium and then knock it down in 20 years because it's obsolete.
Right.
You want to make sure that you keep that infrastructure in place and build something that you can continue to expand or potentially contract, depending on how fans, experiences change over the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. So thinking about how am I going to modify this experience and make sure that whatever I build in a stadium is moldable to whatever a future fan experience can be.
Absolutely, and I think, as I've said, Levi Stadium is a perfect example of that success and how you've been able to incorporate all these different concepts and ideas to ensure that it's not just a football stadium. As you said, it is the most utilized stadium in the United States, and I think that is something that, the reason you're here today is to showcase that and to be able to be something that, everyone here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia can be learning from. And, a lot of the discussions again today have been around making sure that there's the synergies and that those communication lines are kept open so that we can continue to learn from one another, because at the end of the day it is ensuring that the participants and the people are the ones that are having that
Right.
experience that is enjoyable, that's fun, that leaves a sense of fulfillment within them and their experience. And I think that, you know, we're all trying to work so hard to achieve that, and so I think it's so incredible that you really have been able to do it.
And I think some stadiums in the U.S. miss because they're trying to be too fancy. They're too tech forward. They're tech for tech's sake. They're trying to have some fancy food to be able to say they have it. And if you go to a football match, if you're FIFA, if you go to an American football game, you want a hot dog.
Yeah.
You want something that just it's a normal food. Right, like you want to make sure, but it's the best food that you've had at a stadium.
Yes.
Right, not the most gourmet meal that you've ever had in your life, and charge somebody $500 for a meal. But you want to make sure that it's the best food and experience that you have for that type of setting and that type of venue. And that's where I think people miss and try to put a modern art museum inside of a stadium, and it's like that doesn't really matter in the long run. You can use art. We cultivated dozens of local artists from the Bay Area and did a lot of things that highlighted San Francisco, what makes the Bay Area special, and the history of the San Francisco 49ers. And you can do that here with, you know, the history of the kingdom, you know, what you want the future to be, what you want the next vision. By the time World Cup is here, it'll be Vision 2040, right? How do you paint that picture as a part of the art in your stadium that tells a story that you want to tell, not a story that sounds good on paper that doesn't really make an impact once you get to game day.
Touch the emotions, right? And I think
yes.
how we can bridge the gap between the past and the future, the present, you know, it actually leads perfectly onto our next panel discussion. So thank you so much for those insights, those valuable insights. From a personal level, if you don't mind me asking, what do you feel is the most significant part of delivering a good event? What is it for you? What sets it aside for you to know that that's been very successful?
I mean, what was the first sporting event you ever attended?
From a spectator?
From a spectator standpoint.
Perspective, I think it was a game. I'm from Australia, so it was AFL. It was a football game
Aussie
in
football
Australia.
Game.
Yeah.
Right, and you remember that. Like those are the things. Meeting many friends from Saudi Arabia who cheer for different teams. Like there's a reason why they cheer for a team, and it started when they were 5 years old. Right, it's that memory. It's something that connects you to something that's bigger than you and ties you to something. It's not selling a ticket for more than somebody else. It's creating those lasting memories. And when we watch people come to Levi Stadium, it's a family event. Like this is what keeps people together. As when we sold the stadium at the beginning, you had grandparents saying, well, I want to buy 4 seats because I know if I buy a beach house, the kids or the grandkids are going to say, can I have access to it so I can go with my friends? When we go to a sporting game, we go together. And we keep the family together. And that's what makes it special, is you have those unique, intimate family moments and friend moments that you can't create other places.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And I completely agree. It is all about that special family, the emotion that goes with it. So, Jed, thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon. Thank you so much to everyone who has been here, a part of the audience. We really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.